Hey, Steve Magnante here at High Octane Classics in Auburn, Massachusetts with another high octane walk around. Most automobile enthusiasts will recognize this as a 1970 Chevelle SS, but the thing to remember is that there was an SS 396 and an SS 454 starting in 1970, and the way you knew which was, well, you looked underneath the SS when you saw the chrome 396, it was a 396. If you saw a red 454, well, that was the SS 454. Now in total, there were 53,599 SS 396s and only 8,773 SS 454s. But either way, they have the same basic big block Chevy under their domed hood. They're both excellent performers. Depending on state of tune, they're either great or really great, depending again on state of tune. Now something interesting to really come down to is the fact that it's really not a 396 under the hood. Starting in late '69, Chevrolet increased the engine by 60 thousandths overboard to a 402, but for whatever reasons chose not to call it an SS 402. The likely reason is because starting in 1966, the SS 396 was a marketing force, and to disturb that and change it out to SS 402, well, I guess they decided not to, but the reality is this is actually an SS 402, but I won't tell anybody if you won't. The big thing, of course, on SS was the SS logos at the front, the body colored bar in the center of the grille, the blacked out grille, and of course the hood pins, which could be deleted, but they were part of the SS package with the cowl induction hood. Now, speaking of cowl induction hoods, this is not that. The domed hood we see here was standard on Supersport, no problem there. But if you paid extra, you got the ZL2, which had a door here that would open up facing the windshield and allow somewhat pressurized air at the base of the windshield to enter the intake tract on the engine. So again, the domed hood was standard, but if you don't see cowl induction and the little flapper door, well, that means whoever bought the car new didn't pay extra for the ZL2 functional cowl induction. Make our way down the side of this car. Now, this basic body style was used between 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, and in most people's opinions, the 70 was the best looking of them all. I mean, it came with the 454 if you wanted it, and again, just a beautiful look. 4 headlights up front, they'd become 2 in 71 and 72, so kind of the last of this basic era in the purest form. And the wheels on this, these are 14 by 7-inch wheels, standard 5 spokes on the SS, but 1971 would bring 15-inch wheels, but ironically, 1970, 14 inches were as big as it got in Chevelle land. Meanwhile, the Camaro Z28 could be had with 15-inch wheels. And again, a 15-inch wheel allows a 15-inch tire, which is generally a better handling tire in its performance mode. But again, as a super sport, we have the beautiful stripes down the back and on the hood, never over the roof, although a lot of backyard hot rodders like to put the stripes on the roof as well, but that speaks more to the Shelby Mustang iconography than it does the Chevelle. But another thing for 1970 was this rubber bumper at the back, only seen on super sports, and believe it or not, the federal bumper mandates for bumper guards, this satisfied them. This is not paint, this is actually rubber. It's kind of pliable, and this actually qualified as a bumper guard. Crazy, but true. Now, this is an SS 396 or SS 402. Let's take a closer look at that up front. Now, 1970 was the final year that the Supersport Chevelle wasn't available with a small block. For 71, the 350 small block became a standard engine in Supersport. But for 1970, if you saw Supersport, you're looking at the 396 or the 454. And getting back again to that topic, we got to remember that 396 was in name only. It's actually a 402, not a problem. This one has some light modifications, an Edelbrock Performer dual plane intake, some tube steel headers, Edelbrock 4-barrel carburetor, but generally speaking, the mighty big block Chevrolet dynasty in full force right here. But something interesting under the SS hood, when it's not equipped with the ZL2 cowl induction, there's a plate here that is missing. And in other words, with the ZL2 cowl induction, the air cleaner has a rubber foam seal, a single snorkel, but it seals to the bottom of the hood. But that's only when ZL2 cowl induction is ordered. On a standard domed hood, this whole area here is pretty much wide open and doesn't do anything other than sell cars. But these are fantastic looking hoods. And again, the hood pins, also a standard feature on SS. It was deletable if you wanted. But again, disc brakes up front, standard stuff on SS 396 and 4 454 in 1970. Power brakes, of course. Power steering was an option. You could actually get one of these things with manual steering if you wanted a workout. And transmissions, well, a couple of choices. Let's look inside and see what we find on this one. Inside, this particular Chevelle Supersport has the optional, yes, optional Strato bucket seats and center console. Crazy but true, the bench seat up front was still standard. You paid extra for these really sleek and exotic bucket seats. You got to remember that bucket seats were a really big deal. In the 1950s, no car had them except maybe Corvette and, of course, British sports cars. But starting in the early 60s, bucket seats meant sporty, no matter what car they were in. And, of course, in a Supersport, they were an option that really brought it around full circle, made it even more impressive than it already was. Now, Supersport, of course, on the steering wheel right there in the middle, on the doors and the branding, of course. Supersport was Chevrolet's top performance model, and everywhere they could, they bragged loud so that you and the muscle car in the lane next to you, the Roadrunner or the Mustang or whatever it might be, were fully aware you're driving a Supersport. Now, getting to the transmission right here, 4-speed with the Hurst shifter right here. There's going to be a Muncie aluminum case 4-speed onto the floorboard right here, and nothing connects the driver to the car like a clutch pedal and a stick shift. You could get the automatic if you wanted it in your SS, but the 4-speed was the far more exciting and fun way to shift gears. The body of this Chevelle, this styling cycle, lasted 68 through 72, but something a lot of folks don't realize is that in 1970, right here for the first time, the B-pillar got a different shape. And we see it right here in this 1969 fact-finding book. In fact, in here, there it is right there. Notice how in 68 and 69, there's a reverse arch on the B-pillar, whereas for 1970, Chevrolet squared it off and kept it this way through 1972. So again, little details. A lot of folks, you see these cars every day, you don't realize there's two different B-pillar configurations. Now inside the trunk, we will find enough room for a small family's groceries and daily needs. Let's take a peek inside and see what we find. Now keep in mind that the mid-size Chevelle Malibu was a body-on-frame vehicle, unlike certain Ford and Chrysler competitors, which were unit construction. These were still body-on-frame, just like the full-size Chevys, which gave you a really quiet ride. And a big trunk. Here we have it right here, massive. And inside you could put all kinds of luggage and or groceries, so this truly could be used for a smallish family without any troubles at all. Camaros, next size down from here, a little smaller trunk. Novas, of course, were even smaller than that, but this is almost a full-size trunk. Now, something we see, speaking of the trunk, is on the underside. This sticker reminds us, that came from the factory, that when you ordered the positive traction differential, which was not standard on the SS, you had to pay extra, about 40 bucks. What would happen is if you happen to lift one side of the car to change a tire, and for whatever reasons somebody was in the car, put it in gear, the other tire still on the ground could be driven because of the clutches in that positive traction, which would then, of course, upset the car. But when you see that sticker, that's a good thing. It means there's a 12-bolt and there's a posi, and both tires will propel the car forward instead of smoking the right rear, which was standard. Again, you paid about 40 bucks extra for the positive traction. Now, this is a Supersport, and you know the trouble is, after 1968, the VIN, which used to have a 138, which told you it was an SS 396 and 66 and 67 and 68, that went away. But this car is special because in the 7th spot of the VIN, we see a 1, which means this car was built at the Canadian plant. When you see a letter in the 7th spot, that means it was built in America. And the good thing is the Canadian plant, GM of Canada, did very good bookkeeping, and the cowl tag actually has a code for SS 396 that you won't see on any lesser Chevelle. So we see here Z25, that tells us there's no doubt this a Canadian built SS 396 from 1970. Now, if this was an American-built car, that code wouldn't be there. So that's the beauty of Canadian-built Chevelle SS's. SS 454 would have a Z15, the SS 396 is a Z25. So again, Canadian-built cars. Now, the crazy thing about the Canadian-built cars is they weren't built for Canada, but basically GM had so much demand for these, they couldn't keep up with demand with the American plant, so they incorporated production from Canada, which were basically normal cars shipped south to the United States, but they wore that 1 in the 7th spot, and the Z25 25 code on the cowl tag, which is not something you're going to find on an American-built SS 396 in 1970. So it's kind of nice. A Canadian-built car does have proof that it's a real super sport, whereas American cars, you can add these emblems and the 454 or the 396, and nobody's going to know wiser. But again, GM of Canada kept really good records, so you can verify a real SS 396, which is what we have right here. Or is it actually an SS 402? You know the difference now.